All right, everybody. Big day. Big day. What are we talking about? It's a market update on the one day in 4 years. Every 4 years, there's one day where Bitcoin halves. And if you guys have been following anything you guys that we've been doing here in Crypt Nation for any amount of time, I mean, we've been talking about the halving for months and months, and it finally happened on May 11th at about 12:30 Pacific time. That means that the miners have officially had their block rewards for every block that they mine every 10 minutes, which generally nets them about, in the past, 12 and a half Bitcoin, right? Now is going to net them 6.25 Bitcoin. So why does that matter? What's going on here? Why does that happen? So in our newsletter that goes out on Tuesday, we talked about this in depth, in great detail, exactly what the sacrifice is being made here with the halving, right? So every great story, in my opinion, every great story has sacrifice in it, right? Without sacrifice, there's nothing you could learn. There's really, nothing gained. In order for a change to have happened, there needs to be some type of loss, right? In my opinion. Maybe other people believe something different, but that's kind of my theory of how I view the world, is that nothing good comes for free. Nothing good comes easy. Everything, it takes a little bit of sacrifice, whether it's a diet or maybe working out really hard to be better at your sport, right? So the title of my newsletter that I put out for Tuesday for this week of the halving was Victory Through Sacrifice. So what is the sacrifice that is being made that we commemorate every day when the halving happens? So for me, I kind of feel like the sacrifice, and what the data also tells me is the sacrifice, is that Bitcoin miners are essentially sacrificing short-term profits for long-term gains, right? Miners come to Bitcoin to run the network, and by running the network and supplying a utility for every one of us to transact on and secure our money and secure our store of value and ensure that we're not having our, equity in the network essentially diluted arbitrarily by a centralized party, right? So the miners are the decentralized governing force of our currency. And the fact that there's this covenant promise that I kind of like to think between the miners and the users is that, we're not forced to use Bitcoin. Nobody's forcing you to use Bitcoin, right? The only thing that you're forced to use right now is more or less the currency of the country that you live in, right? They force you to say, this is legal tender for goods and services. I can't go down to the 7-Eleven and pay with euro, right? Because if you're in America, it wouldn't work like that. So I'm forced to use the dollar here. But miners knew that they were competing for my attention, for your attention, for everybody's money, right? When they first spun up the network, miners knew that, as this new, essentially, government of this new currency, they knew that they needed to earn your trust, and they couldn't earn it without first showing that they were subservient to you, that the miners and the issuers of the currency were subservient to the holders of the currency. Whereas now it feels like, the government is weaponizing the US dollar by devaluing it, and it actually is hurting the holder and the saver of that currency. So when you flip that model on its head, you get Bitcoin, where the miners, when they spin up a mining operation to say, hey, we're going to mint Bitcoin, we're going to be a part of securing the network, they know that every 4 years, their block rewards are getting cut in half. That means they're getting a pay cut every 4 years in terms of Bitcoin. In terms of dollars, it might be more, it might be less, because Bitcoin is essentially, right now it's, 12.5, or yesterday was 12.5 Bitcoin per block. And today, and for the next 4 years, it's going to be 6.25 Bitcoin per block. But the dollar value of that 6.25 Bitcoin 4 years down the line, or a year down the line, will probably be higher than what 12.5 Bitcoin was worth in the past, right? You see what I'm saying? So they're taking a short-term pay cut because it's like they're, investing in the equity of the network. So think about like a startup, who says, hey, we'll pay you, $100,000. But what's more important is that you're going to be making, X amount of equity. And what we can also do is we could say, hey, we're only going to pay you $50,000 cash, but you'll get 2X the amount of equity. So there's different, things like that go on. So you have to think of a Bitcoin miner as almost saying, they're investing in the long-term potential in taking this short-term hit in order to earn the trust of everybody using it. And in order to, what are they earning the trust, right? It's the fact that, by having a deflationary aspect to the currency, right? It gains value over time and it appreciates value over time by design, right? And so they've earned your trust by saying, "Hey, we're running the network, but we're issuing the currency, but we're also, you know, essentially making it harder on ourselves and less profitable on ourselves every 4 years." And that's kind of like, I don't know, it's this sacrifice, it's this selflessness, it's this new paradigm that it essentially is again a covenant between the issuers of the currency and the users of the currency, saying that it's this beautiful marriage that the user has to trust the issuer, that the issuer necessarily won't dilute them and inflate the value away. Um, and it's the user, it's the me and the you, it's the people that aren't mining but that we're transacting in the Bitcoin network. We trust them because we see that they have made those sacrifices, right? I think it's a pretty cool idea. It's kind of a model that like flips really the entire idea of what a currency is on its head, right? We're just not used to it, but I think it's a really cool paradigm. And again, all great stories and all lasting victories, right? Any meaningful victory has sacrifice attached to it. So, as after you win a war, you memorialize the fallen, right? You memorialize the sacrifices, and that's your victory is the sacrifices. So we, as users of the Bitcoin network, should, we're beholden to the miners, right? And we owe them thanks and gratitude, but they're also beholden to us because, we're the ones using it. And so they're recognizing up front that they're beholden to us. So they sacrifice. And then that adds value over time because it adds scarcity, because it stems the flow of new Bitcoin into the ecosystem. So it adds a scarcity component. And that scarcity component is what makes Bitcoin accrue value over time, right? So miners are making this more scarce, right? This currency more scarce for your good, for my good, for their own good, right? In order to run a profitable enterprise, Bitcoin needs to go up in value over time. Um, and they're doing it for us. So I just wanted to come to you guys today for a quick, 7 minute update here, let you guys know what I'm seeing and how I'm thinking about the halving, really, and how I'm celebrating. I'm celebrating by giving thanks that there's miners out there running the network and running the software and doing it all for the good of everybody in the world, right? I think it's a pretty cool idea. So anyhow, I wanted to come to you guys today, talk about victory through sacrifice.